Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the podcast that believes the Patterson Gimlin film is real. I'm Chris Daly, and today I'd like to welcome back to the show Michael Kingston. Michael, how's it going, man?
How we doing? Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it. I know we were just
Absolutely.
on not too long ago.
That's okay. You can come back as many times as you want. I love talking wrestling, and anyone who wants to talk wrestling with me definitely can have a place here, for sure. Okay, so I like to start these things out with an icebreaker question, like you know. So today's question: what is your favorite viral meme or your favorite viral video?
Mm. Man, that's a tough one. Let me
That's a
think.
tough one.
Um, a long time. I mean, a while back, and it's kind of mean, but I'm a sophomore child at heart, I guess. But there was
Okay.
a video that they blindfold the kid and get him to try to throw a rock behind him and then into a bucket, and then they switch the bucket out for a shovel, and then he hits the shovel, and the handle flies up and hits him in the nuts. I'm a sucker for cup shots, so
Nice.
if you got a good there's a good nut shot in it, chances are it's gonna be appreciated.
Nice. That's awesome. I think my favorite one, well, one of my favorite ones recently is that little kid that kind of comes in the kitchen like, "Hey, you want Taco Bell?" And the mom's like, "What? You want Taco Bell? Yeah, are you gonna pay for it?" Yep. I don't know if you've seen that one. I'll have to
I
find it and
haven't.
send it to you. It's just a little kid trying to be sneaky about eating Taco Bell. It's pretty funny. So I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. It's pretty funny.
All right,
All
I'm
right,
down.
dude. So it's that time of year. It's the holiday season. It's in full swing. Do you have any holiday traditions that you try to make sure you hit every year? Whether it be Thanksgiving, Christmas, or a combination of both.
I've just got a weird life now, and things are always different. And sometimes when you do as many conventions as I do, you try to use the holidays to do other things. Like um, one year we went to Europe over like Thanksgiving,
Oh,
and that was
nice.
pretty cool to be in Paris on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
Christmas markets and stuff like that are really cool. A lot of I mean, generally I go to see my family in Syracuse. I live about 2.5 hours away now, but I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and
Nice.
so generally I'll go to my family's for Christmas, and that's good. But I haven't done. I just my life is so full between my job and all the comics I'm working on, the shows I go to, and just wrangling everybody that I haven't put up a tree in years. I didn't put up stockings or whatever, but like I mean, it's been a long time, and that used to be a big part of our family thing was hanging up the tree,
Yeah.
listen to the Chipmunks Christmas and all that. I mean, there's still a soft spot in my heart for that, but
Yeah.
it's I don't know. Yeah, it's tricky. Things things are always a little bit fluid in my life based on how a number of different factors go.
That's fair. All right, man. So this weekend is the big Thanksgiving traditional SummerSlam, or not SummerSlam, Survivor Series pay-per-view coming out tomorrow because we're recording this the day before. Do you have any predictions for any of the matches, or do you know who's on the card?
Yeah, yeah. There's 5 matches.
Yeah. So let's
Um,
start. Let's start. LA Knight and Shinsuke for the U.S.
I can't
title.
I can't see him taking the belt off LA Knight, but um, I don't know why you bring Shinsuke back just to put him in that spot so quickly. But yeah, I would assume LA Knight's going over here, but I wouldn't hate it if Shinsuke won. I mean, I feel like he's been underutilized a little bit. I
Oh,
mean, he's done
100%.
a lot of the Lord's work in terms of setting people up for stuff and whatnot. So I go either way on it, but in my heart of hearts, I assume LA Knight's going over here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like Shinsuke's been gone forever, and now they finally bring him back with this new kind of a twist on his character. And you would hate to kind of kill that momentum right away. Kind of like they did with when they keep rebooting uh that guy from Imperium. I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Giovanni?
Gunther?
No,
Oh, Giovanni Vinci. Yeah.
yeah. They keep rebooting that poor guy and they bring him in with like they build him up real big and then they just squash his momentum completely.
I think with Nakamura though, and I think they look at him a little bit like I don't know, kind of how they used to treat Bray Wyatt to a certain extent, is they feel like he's bulletproof because he's so good and that
Yeah.
he can eat a loss and have a good match, and then so there's sort of a trap in WWE if you're like good but not like big. Maybe
Yeah.
like Ziggler was in it, right? Like that, you need a good match, you get Ziggler
Yep.
in there and he's going to deliver and he's going to have a great match and whatever. But like he was almost too good at making people look good. So they used him more to
Yeah.
make people look good than they used him to make himself look good. And I always considered his run. I mean, while he had a very extremely prolific run, I always felt like they could have done more with him.
Oh, 100%.
But when I see that with Nakamura, and they did it with Bray Wyatt when he was before he was the Fiend,
Yeah.
so I Nakamura's kind of in that spot.
I think that's a good point. But yeah, I'm with you though. I think LA Knight, I don't think they're going to take it off of him right now. So I think LA Knight's going to win, but I almost kind of have a feeling that there's going to be he'll win by like DQ or something like that because someone's going to come out and mess with Shinsuke and they're going to throw off the finish, I think. But I still think LA Knight's going over, but I don't think it's going to be cleanly.
Yeah, I can definitely see them setting something up bigger.
Yeah.
This is the season of big multi-man matches to get everybody on the card. So
Speaking of multi-man matches, the next one on the list, Braun Breaker, Sheamus, and Ludwig Kaiser for the Intercontinental title.
I see no reason to take the belt off Braun. He's starting to get over. I mean, there's a part of me that's always going to want Sheamus to win
Oh
because that's
yeah.
the Intercontinental title is the one title he hasn't held. And
It's
I
the
mean,
last piece.
I think Sheamus is one of my favorite wrestlers. Like he's so good.
Yeah.
And one of the tricks, right? Like everybody can have a good pay-per-view match, right? Like you've got time, you've got people's attention or whatever. But to me, like when you can have an exceptional TV match, when you've only got a little bit of time, you've got commercials coming in and out, to me, like in the modern era, that's almost to me the tale of who the true craftsmen are. And
Yeah.
like Rey Mysterio has incredible TV matches all the time.
Hmm.
And Sheamus is one of those guys. So I'd love to see Sheamus win, but I almost don't feel like they've built it up. Like he just got added towards the end. Braun just won the belt back from Sammy, and I feel like he needs to establish himself. I don't think a loss would benefit him at all. But Kaiser, I think, just needs a good showing here to
Yeah.
sort of show that he belongs on an upper tier. So I think Braun wins. Um, but I mean, ultimately, if you wanted to, I don't think anything would go wrong with any of them.
Oh yeah. And I'm with you. Braun just won the title back from Jey Uso. So I think it's too soon for him to lose it already again. Um, Sheamus, I'm with you. Sheamus kind of, I think, fits in that position that Dolph was in, and the one that you kind of said that they put Shinsuke in, where he's, you put him out there to have them have a good match. Um, I and I'm with you also. I don't think they've built up Sheamus enough to win it, even though, it'd be cool for him to finally win and have the complete set. I don't think this is a big enough venue for that.
Yeah,
Um,
WrestleMania for sure.
oh yeah. Just something bigger. I mean, even Royal Rumble would be kind of a big thing too if that happened there. But I I think that based on this, I think maybe they threw Ludwig in there just to have Braun be able to beat someone that's not Sheamus.
There's part of me that thinks that Kaiser could win it, if only because it seems like he and Gunther are going to be sort of at odds. And I don't think Gunther's losing to Priest, but I think Gunther's losing soon to either Punk or Rollins to set up Mania. So I think I could see it where maybe Kaiser wins the Intercontinental title and then he's holding that over, for the first time ever, right? Like
Yeah.
he's got one up on Gunther, and then maybe that changes the dynamic of the relationship some.
Yeah, so I think
Also,
that
Kaiser's excellent, just great. I mean,
is
he's
good.
gonna be a top tier guy at some point. Like
Yeah.
he's good.
Yeah, and I think that'll be one of the only matches on the whole card that I think really can go any way, and it could still turn out really well because, really any three of those guys could win. I almost kind of want to think that Ludwig is a red herring where they're going to have Braun beat him just so Sheamus doesn't have to eat another loss. But you make a good point. They could totally just throw everything up and say, okay, Ludwig's winning, to kind of to start, putting some more fire on that Gunther thing that they've been trying to play off that they're fighting each other. That's a good point. So you had already mentioned it, Gunther versus Damian Priest.
I just don't see any reason for Priest to win. The worst thing you can do is to get hot before WrestleMania season, just because it doesn't matter, right? Like Ryback
Yeah.
was hot, and I mean, wherever people's opinions are about Ryback, I mean, Ryback was hot as hell, and then they ended up putting him in that wrestle match before WrestleMania, and then they had to just figure out ways to beat him, and then they killed his character.
Yeah.
Was he worth investing? I don't know, but I mean, there was a point where he was just white hot as a character,
Oh yeah, I
and
remember.
there were people, so you just don't want to get hot around WrestleMania time because they're generally not going to deviate from their plans. I mean, I like the push from Priest. Um, I mean, I think Priest is really really good. Um, I don't think it doesn't seem like he's done with Judgment Day yet. So, because Finn brought him up again this week,
He did.
so there's part of me that wonders if maybe Priest gets a tag partner and feuds with Finn and JD or whatever. But I just don't think this is his time. I think that Gunther's going to lose it at the Rumble to either Rollins or Punk to set up WrestleMania with Rollins versus Punk. And unless they decide that those guys don't need the title, but I think it's going to be awful hard to justify putting them in a main event slot if they don't have the title. So
I agree.
we'll see what they do there, but I just can't see a world where Priest goes over.
Yeah, I mean they've been building Priest up pretty big and having him get the one up on Gunther for the last couple of weeks. But I think that's just foreshadowing that Gunther's going to come back and he's going to get his one up, and that's how he's going to do it. So Damien's basically, I think he's winning the battles, but he's not going to win the war. So I'm with you. And yeah, chances are, like you said, Finn's been bringing him up a lot lately. There's a chance that there could be kind of like I predicted with the LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura that Finn is going to have something to do with Gunther losing or with Damian losing.
Could
And
be.
since
Definitely
you
could
kind
be.
of you kind of brought it up already with the men's Survivor Series match, we've got Roman, the Usos, Sami Zayn, and CM Punk versus the New Bloodline with the God, Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, Jacob Fatu, um, Bronson Reed, and the new tribal chief, Solo Sikoa. I had heard that the reason they put CM Punk in with Roman is to kind of, fuel that with Seth a little bit more. That Seth was so against going with Roman, but CM Punk did it anyway. So, I think, you make a good point about them setting up for Mania for sure. But with this match, who do you see? What's your prediction?
I think the heels for sure. I think this might be a spot for them to debut Hikuleo.
That'd be
Um,
good.
and I think there's a possibility that Heyman turns on the bloodline. Um,
I've heard about that. That would
and
be interesting.
maybe with Punk even. But I uh, I don't see any way that I don't see there's no value in the faces going over. I don't see the faces going over here. At some point there, I'm assuming there's going to be a reveal of The Rock being behind the new bloodline. Um, so all of those things have to happen before the baby faces win. So
Yeah.
I would think, um, I think the heels are going over here.
Yeah, I agree. I think if the men or if the faces go over, it kind of kills the story too. Like
And they
that
were they
like
were
it's just done.
tiptoeing into that for a minute they
Yeah.
were doing some of that Superman booking with like Roman and the new bloodline, and they did a little course correct with Solo beating Roman at the last show, and but they were doing it with Priest in the Judgment Day, where like he was beating everybody single handedly, and they were it didn't make anybody no one member look like they were even close to his equal, and they did the same thing with the new bloodline for a while, where like
Yeah.
they kind of protected Jacob, but like everybody was bouncing for one guy, and then all four of them would take him down. But I feel like they've course corrected a little bit there. So I think yeah, I think the heels go over here easy.
Yeah. I agree. Just, you know, like I said, because I think if the faces go over, I think it's just going to kill the momentum of the story. And if they're really going to drag this bloodline story out longer, I don't see if the faces win how they drag it out anymore. It kind of just
Agreed.
it feels like it would be a momentum killer for sure. Um, and of course, the Women's Survivor Series match, we've got Io, Bailey, Naomi, Rhea, and Bianca versus Nia, Tiffany, Candice, Liv, and Raquel. What do you think?
I I feel like Rhea's team was going to go over here, just because they've kind of gotten the better of her a lot. The only thing, if I don't know if there's going to be some sort of a reveal over who took Jade out or not. What's going on with that? But I, at the end of the day, I don't think it matters so much. And maybe that's a function of them not having enough storylines for the women, and maybe they will once this U.S. belt and whatever Intercontinental belt come out. But I think in the short term, I think Rhea probably gets a win over Liv because Liv is constantly sort of evaded her and avoided her and gotten by her since she's been back. So I feel like here's a good spot for Rhea to get a win without obviously they don't have to change the title.
Yeah, and I mean, Rhea's had, you know, a string of, you know, losses where she lost his how to live. She had the rematch, she lost the rematch to live. You know, of course, there's been outside extenuating circumstances. But yeah, I don't know that Rhea can eat another loss. I don't think she can. Plus, you know, I think
Well,
we can all just agree that the person who attacked Jade obviously is going to be Bianca, right? I mean, everyone thinks it's going to be Naomi. I really think it's going to be Bianca for
I
sure.
think it'd be a mistake to turn Bianca heel. I think Bianca is one of the best baby faces in wrestling.
Oh, I agree.
And I think Jade is a natural heel. So I don't I don't know. I don't like it if they do it. I mean, I've thought about it. But the other thing that I think about with the thing is that Becky Lynch is probably coming back for Netflix. So they probably want the belt maybe on Rhea by December. So if Rhea beats her, then she can have Rhea can beat Liv, maybe Saturday's main event or something like that. And then that sets
Yeah.
up, Rhea and Becky can have a showdown because Rhea took the belt from Becky.
Yeah.
Although I guess Becky won it back and then Liv took it from her too. So I guess it works either way. But I feel
Yeah.
like Rhea's taken a lot of losses and she probably needs to be built up a little more.
Yeah, I agree. And I think she definitely needs a win this time. And yeah, I agree with you with Bianca. I think Bianca definitely is one of the biggest faces they have right now. And I've always kind of thought that if her and Jade were going to break up, I thought that Jade would be the one turning, just because, like you said, she's a natural heel. But I think it would be interesting to turn Bianca heel. But so I'm not, yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
mean, Bianca started as a heel.
Right.
I think she does it great, but I
Yeah.
think good baby faces sell tickets. I know people seem to, everybody, has their sort of opinions, but like when it comes down to it, right? Like in the battle of Hogan and Flair, Hogan won, right? Like John
Right.
Cena sold tickets, right? Baby faces make money. And to me, I mean, I think that they really kind of took the gas off of Bianca a lot when Triple H took over. But I think she is one of the most perfect professional wrestlers to exist. Like she's got such a unique look. She's got incredible charisma. She can have great matches. She's just athletic. Like I mean, you wouldn't pick a fight with. I mean, most guys wouldn't pick a fight with Bianca. I mean, she's like a
Yeah,
stud athlete. You know what I mean? Like I think she's
for sure.
everything that you want out of a wrestler.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. I just to me, like I said, I think Jade's a natural heel, and maybe they don't see it because maybe they
Yeah.
see Hulk Hogan with her, but I don't.
Yeah, I think sticking her in the face spot is weird just because she's been a heel for so long. And like you said, she's a great heel. And the only thing I would see with Bianca is the fact that, you know, she's had all this background history about going against damage control with Io and with Bailey. And now she's teaming with Io and Bailey. So it's kind of like they hated each other. Now all of a sudden they're best friends just because they don't like Liv Morgan and Nia Jackson, those guys. So I don't know. I just kind of have a feeling in my bones that they're trying to place the blame on Naomi because they think that's the obvious, and they're going to push so hard to say Naomi's the one that attacked Jade. Naomi's jealous because they're edging her out of their little trio group. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if they went and, like you said, Triple H has already messed up a bunch of stuff with Bianca anyway, so it wouldn't surprise me if they decided, hey, we're going to flip you and have you be the bad guy.
Shout out though too to it's I mean it's important to think about. Liv Morgan wasn't on WrestleMania this year, and
Yeah,
neither was Nia Jax. And
right.
look at how much they've carried the brand. This I mean Nia's I
Yeah,
love Nia Jax. I think she's incredible. And I think I don't know, like that's she's doing great. Liv's doing great. I think that's it's a big step up
yeah.
for those ladies. Like I said, to not be on
Especially seeing
WrestleMania.
from where they came from, back in
Yeah.
NXT.
So definitely good on those ladies. It's nice to see Candice get a little chance to do something.
Yeah.
She's obviously talented. And then the killer is right. Like you've got all these studs in NXT just waiting to come up. You know, Julia and Roxanne and Stephanie Bakor and
Hmm.
I mean that's right away. I mean, there's a ton of ton of talent just waiting, just beating on the door there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a hot little group. I think Chelsea
Yep.
Green is amazing.
Yep.
She's one of the best women's wrestlers in like wrestling. Like she
Oh, I
understands it,
agree.
she gets it.
Yep.
She takes every little bit of time that she gets and makes the most of it. Like she's incredible. I it's there's definitely they've definitely got a lot of people who they could do more with if they wanted. You know, it's an embarrassment of that roster's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. I think that's really the problem with everybody is there's so many talented people everywhere. There's just not enough TV time.
I mean, I think there can be, right? Like you just people don't have to be on every week, right? Like I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I think that people could do a better job of is selling stuff. You know what I mean? Like if you're in a brutal match, like take the next week off, you
Yeah.
know, and then put somebody else in that slot. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? CM Punk and Drew McIntyre probably shouldn't have been on TV after that Hell in the Cell for like 2, 3 weeks, you
Yeah.
know, and then have them on and be like, yo, my ass is beat. I need to get off or whatever. But like, you know, don't let the injuries carry some weight. Give your talent
Yeah.
some time off. And then I think sometimes too, the talent doesn't want to be off because, you know, it's the whole Wally Pip thing, right? Like you don't want to lose
Yeah.
your spot. But I think, uh, I think that they could probably do a little bit better by spreading some stuff out, having more contenders matches and let the contenders sort of, you know, give them some time to grow and shine into some spots. And then, you know, but yeah, no, they don't, and Charlotte hasn't been on TV in forever. So I mean, at some
Yeah.
point you got to figure she's coming back too. I mean,
Yep.
plug in Charlotte and Becky back in. I mean, that's nuts.
It's
That's
true.
an insane roster.
Yeah. And I mean, I was gonna say, lost my train of thought. There's so much going on. Yeah, I don't know how they. I mean, John. Okay, I remember what I was gonna say. John Moxley. He even said this. When he first left WWE, is like, I told Vince, I was on TV like every single week. Like, I don't need to be on TV every single week. Like, let Tyler Breeze. Like, give me a week off and let Tyler Breeze be on TV for a week. You know what I mean? Like,
Which is
100%. Like,
hysterical because then he was on TV every week in AEW, just you know beating
and he still
everybody.
is. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
it's. I agree with you. It's like, let these stories breathe a little bit. And not only that, like don't drag the story from show to show to show because that way now you're having the same guy on every single show. And essentially, like you said, you're taking the spot of someone who would be on, the Saturday show and John Moxley's there instead. And so because he's there, someone else can't be there. And there's really
right.
no reason that you have to drag the story out. That's kind of why switching gears a little bit, going to with AEW, I really think they should like lock the rosters in a little bit better, kind of like WWE does, just because there's so many guys, and you're dragging the same story out over every single show. It kind of gets old not just seeing the same guys all the time.
I think it's tough too because, and this isn't sort of a referendum on anybody's talent because the roster is super, super talented.
Sure.
But I also think that, I don't know if anybody's like a super superstar right now.
Right.
Um, and the problem is, right, like you need stars to make stars,
Right.
right? Like CM Punk, like back way, way back in Ring of Honor in 2000, what, five, four, five, like Raven put over Punk. And Raven
Yeah.
was way above his level, right? And like Raven was a legend and this guy's an indie wrestler, whatever. And like Raven put over Punk and that made Punk. Like you need a guy. That's why Billy Gunn never took off. Like, the King of the Ring was always like the launching point. But then Billy Gunn won the King of the Ring and never won any matches. Right? He
Right.
lost the Rock at SummerSlam. So then he doesn't get elevated. So like you need to beat stars to become a star. I mean, you can do it. Like you can become a star if you do some incredible character work and maybe you tell an incredible story, but that's much harder to do. So it's tough. I mean, I do think that Kyle Fletcher beating Osprey. I do think Osprey is somebody that they have that's still been protected and feels like a star. I do think they use him a little too much.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think Kyle Fletcher beating Osprey is a big moment for him. I think that if they ride that correctly, they might be able to, make Kyle Fletcher into something. I feel like they had a moment with Claudio when he wrestled like in all like when he's flying all over the country and he wrestled all his matches and he went to a draw with Okada. Like I felt
Yeah.
like there was a moment where they could have broke him free and made him a single star, and then they just plugged him back into whatever they're doing with the
The
this
death
romper
match.
stomper business.
Yeah.
Um, but I think when lightning strikes, like you can't sit on it because it doesn't strike very often. Um,
Agreed.
so I think I mean, I do think the Continental Classic is a good chance for them to make some stars, maybe. I
I think so
mean,
too.
but it all depends on how they book it, right? Like
Yeah.
all those guys need wins. I mean, I think that I think of all the people in it. I mean, I do think Ricochet probably, and it's crazy because he just got there, but I feel like he needs it a lot. I feel like they haven't really done great by him for what you would expect for them bringing him in. And I
Yeah.
think it was. I mean, I think the booking of the first Osprey match was horrendous, just horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
That's just I don't know. Sometimes it's not that hard, right? Like, when they debuted FTR and they were going to fight the Bucks, like the Bucks were doing that thing where they were just like super kicking people backstage and there was some
Yeah.
weird angle. Like, sometimes it's just like, hey, these are the two best teams in the world. It's the fucking Super Bowl. Let's go. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to, you don't have to. Sometimes you can overcomplicate things.
Right.
So, and I think with Ricochet and Osprey, that's all they had to do. Just bring them in. Hey, but I don't know. It's and there's always backstage things that you don't know about, like things
Right.
that are in people's contracts or people are hurt that you're not aware of or things that have to be done for certain reasons. So, I mean, it's always easy to play armchair quarterback, but a
Yeah.
lot of times there's just stuff that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, that's what I like so much about New Japan is like, all these people in the United States, they complain about how AEW doesn't have stories really, where they just like, here's this guy, and they're just gonna fight. It's a dream match, whatever. And really it is, but it's like, where's the story? Where's the build up to their match? Like you don't necessarily need that all the time. Like you said, you don't have to overcomplicate it. They're two amazing wrestlers, put them together and let's fight. Sure, every once in a while you need to put a little bit of story in there every once in a while to make you feel something, but
but in the business, hype sells
no.
tickets,
Right.
right? Like, did anybody think that Mike Tyson and Jake Paul was going to be a classic? No,
No.
but it was hype,
But they definitely
right?
didn't think
Like
it was going to go the way it went, though.
in the in the the early days of MMA, like Ken Shamrock was washed and Tito Ortiz was killing him. But those
Yeah.
fights always drew ratings because those guys could talk and they had personal
Yep.
issues with each other. People believed it. And even though they knew that Ken was probably going to get washed or waxed in the first round, they're still breaking records.
Right.
So hype sells fights. And no matter what you think you're selling with pro wrestling, you're selling fights. It's the same business as boxing.
Agreed.
So I think sometimes you just got to let stuff marinate a little bit.
Yeah.
And, and I also think like sometimes they try to get too cute for themselves. Like I see stuff on Twitter, they're like, oh, 6 months ago, Adam Page tried to reverse this move and this time Brian Cage was ready or whatever. Like, you can't expect people to follow it that closely. Like
Oh yeah.
I mean, you gotta spoon feed wrestling fans, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, but I think that's it. I think you gotta spoon feed them. I think you gotta let the hype sell the fights.
It's true. And it's like, they always say with Sheamus, he's got banger after banger after banger, but it's like, sometimes you got to let it cook a little, let it simmer between the bangers a little bit.
Sure, sure. But I mean, Sheamus is one of those guys that can go out and have a match, one of those hard hitting. I mean, because that's what they
Right. It
did. I mean, him and Gunther and Drew just, I mean,
was incredible.
it's crazy too. Like Sheamus wrestled Wade Barrett one time in WWE, and it was on Raw, and I still think about that match. And it wasn't a main event or whatever; it was just a match that they had. I was like, man, these guys are beating the piss on each other, and
Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah.
Like I think that I think that Sheamus is one of those guys that can just grab your attention and be like, okay, pay attention to me now. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of it too is just guys knowing their place on the card and whatever too, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
you're not supposed to steal the show this time.
Yeah.
You're on the second match on the show. You're going out to have a serviceable match and whatever, and maybe get your story over and get you to the next spot. But you're not gonna, and that's fine. It's
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to structure stuff.
For sure. All right. Well, I think we've got SummerSlam and all the other state of the wrestling industry squared away now. So now let's switch gears to something a little bit different. You are here to talk about your brand new book, which is a book I'm super stoked about, and everyone else out there should be super stoked about. Friday Night Bigfoot. So, we talked about it a little bit last time you and I chatted. But for those who might not remember, and for those who aren't familiar with what Friday Night Bigfoot is, let's talk a little bit about what it's about.
So there's a little funny backstory here that I haven't really talked about, but
Okay.
we did a 6 page story um, in Tales from the Road Volume One, but before that, we had done like a mini comic for it was Pro Wrestling Crate USA that eventually was absorbed into Pro Wrestling Crate. So that's where that story started. And then there was a startup company doing digital comics that was super into it, and they were going to make us like part of. They had all these like superstar creators, and then me, and it was going to be me and Josh Adams, Neil Adams' son, and
Oh,
we were going to do this story, and we were going to do it for this digital comics company, and that we're launching, and they were going to add. It was going to be like almost like Made in Fire to a certain degree, where there were like sound effects and like a little bit of motion added, but not like a ton, just enough to sort of emphasize big action pieces and stuff. And it was really, really cool. And then the pandemic happened and all the investors pulled out, which is insane because like that's your moment, right? Like
yeah.
that was your moment. When all the shops are closed and people aren't making stuff and everybody's locked in their house. Like, bro, that was your time. But they botched it, I guess. So then we put that story into Tales from the Road Volume One. Like I hadn't even thought about doing Tales from the Road, and then I was in the pandemic, and I was like, yeah, I've got all these stories. Let's put some of them together in a book and just let people check them out. And
Yeah.
so we put it in there, and then lots of people were into it. And you know, every time I would see Dave at a show, Gangrel, this was Gangrel's idea. Every time we would get together, we would talk more about it, and we just kick around more ideas and just laugh and whatever. And I'm like, you know what? There's some there's some money in this thing. Let's do it. So we decided to
Hey.
pull it out and uh, make it like a standalone series. And so it's a story of Andrew Stanton is a family owned. He's a promoter of a family owned wrestling company that's been running in Portland for years, and he's the promoter. And he's part of three brothers. His younger brother is sort of a up and coming rookie, and his older brother's a champion. There's a reason why there's a wide berth in their ages. And the father passed away, and he was the sort of the patriarch of this thing. And then he gives it to Andrew because he's not he's the only one in the family that isn't super super good shape or whatever, doesn't look like a wrestler. And everybody sort of senses some weakness in the promotion, and so you have like you have an outlaw promotion forming. So yeah, so Andrew's the one that takes over the business because his family, he was sort of groomed for it because he was the one that wasn't built like a wrestler. And then
Yeah.
everybody kind of smells weakness, right? So there's an outlaw promotion that forms. There's there's drugs coming into Portland at this time in the mid '80s, and then you have the big sort of WWE style national group coming in. And now all of a sudden, like the Barbarians are at the gate, and he's sort of a rookie, rookie promoter, and they feel like they're going to get their family owned promotion is going to go out of business. So Andrew comes upon Bigfoot, um, and then he decides to train Bigfoot to wrestle. Instead of turning him in for billions of dollars, right? He decides he's going to train him to main event his independent wrestling company. And there begins the sort of wackiness because everybody thinks it's a guy in a suit because everybody knows wrestling's fake, but it's really Bigfoot. And you know, we start the story with Bigfoot in rehab, uh, doing yoga. So it's very it's funny because it's a very authentic type of a story. A lot of that sort of stuff was going on in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
It's very true to a lot of the dynamics and a lot of the territories when WWE was coming through. And then there's some fun family stuff that we play with, and then you just drop Bigfoot in the middle of all of that, and it's fun. It's got a lot of heart. It's absurd in all the best ways, and it's a fun story. So it's funny because we started telling the story years before Heels came out, but Heels has that sort of dynamic, that sort of small town promotion type thing. But
Yeah.
obviously, take Heels and put Bigfoot in the middle of it, um, and you'll have a it's fun, and I think that people. I think anybody who likes wrestling will love it. I think if you're a Bigfoot mark, you're gonna love it. But I mean, honestly, it's a fun story that anybody can enjoy. I try to make my stuff accessible for people. So there's a lot of sort of family dynamics in it and whatever. But it's a fun story, and there's so much absurdity sort of around Bigfoot and his existence, and then I think, yeah, I think it's definitely worth your time.
Absolutely. I mean, like I was mentioning before we started recording, I've got a friend who does Bigfoot in space. There's another friend who does Bigfoot learns karate. There's no reason we can't have Bigfoot learns to wrestle. There's no reason. There's never enough Bigfoot. So I'm very excited to read this book.
And the territories are such a fun time. Like it's just
Yeah,
interesting. Like
absolutely.
wrestling is great right now, and I think everybody
Yeah.
understands that. But like there's just such a there's just a time when the territories were just the Wild West and just insane things happen and whatever. And I just think it's fun to kind of go back to that. And maybe it's not ideal for anybody that had to live through it, but
Yeah.
I think it's definitely fun for storytelling purposes, because
Yeah.
you're like, oh well, this guy failed the wellness test and he had a 5-day suspension. That's not necessarily as exciting as say, we just let the guy cook.
Yeah. For sure. So, you kind of mentioned a little bit the backstory about it where you had it started as a six-page book with Gangrel. Where did you guys come up with the idea originally for the story?
So I do Tales from the Road, which are short stories that I co-write with different wrestlers. And I was at a Florida SuperCon, and Gangrel was next to me, and we were just talking, and I was telling him about the stuff that I do, and I was like, "Hey, you ever be interested in a story?" He goes, "Yeah, can we do something with Bigfoot?" It's like, I don't see why not. And
Awesome.
and then just over the weekend, we just sort of kicked around ideas and stuff, and then by the end of the weekend, we had a story, and I mean, at the time, I was only doing 6-page stories, but the idea was, we were always going to come back to it just because we had so many ideas.
Yeah.
Uh, so, and I know like this story is Dave's a big Bigfoot guy. He's very, you know, I mean, if nothing else, like I want this to do good for him. So
Sure.
because I know that it's a story we want to do for a long time, and there's been a lot of we have a lot of hopes behind it, and would like to at least get the first I'd say 5 or 6 issues, the first story arc out into
Yeah,
the world. So
that's awesome. So, do you have what are your plans for it? Do you just have those 6 issues? Ideally, in a perfect world, if you could get all the funding that you needed for it, how long would the series go?
well, I mean, I've got a second arc in my head. A lot of it, like anything, I think it just depends on how long people will support it. So we're doing issue one through this Kickstarter right now, and then if we get enough, then maybe we'll just do two right out of the rip. But I'd like to do maybe 3, 4 issues. Uh, Obviously this one's this year. Maybe do three, 2 or 3 more next year in between Tales from the Road and some other projects that I'm working on. Um, but again, like I said, if by some chance, and I don't think we're going to, but I mean, if we popped for like 50K, I'd just be like, whatever, let's just do the whole thing. Or even if we did 25, you know what I mean? I could probably just make the whole trade. So,
Nice.
um, that's something I would have to kind of assess once the money was rolling in at a good clip. But I think that I would like to obviously get it out more sooner than later. So,
Yeah,
um, and some of it'll factor around Tony's availability too, because he does a lot of stuff. He just finished a Rick and Morty series for IDW, and so he'll he'll probably be doing some stuff and then come back to it and whatever. But Tony's a huge wrestling fan too, so we were always looking for something to collaborate on. And after Josh was doing other stuff, and Tony wanted to do this, so I figured this would be a time to put Tony on.
very cool. So, let's talk a little bit about the Kickstarter. Do you have any? I mean, I already know the answer to this, but let's share some of the cool stuff you have added in this Kickstarter, just as extras.
So there are 4 covers. The main cover is sort of an adaptation of what everybody considers that sort of famous Bigfoot shot, where like that picture of Bigfoot, and then
Yeah,
it's by Andy Ballinger. But then we sort of updated it to give Bigfoot a title belt and some paparazzi and whatnot. And it's super dope. And then
yeah,
Tony did a variant that's a sort of a riff on a '80s wrestling magazine cover. Maria Wolf did an incredible. I think Maria Wolf is probably, if not, she's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of cover artists in comics. Like I think she's incredible, and she did a just this huge maxi shot of like Bigfoot giving a jobber a backbreaker, and then Will Robson did a really really dope like sort of Ultimate Warrior Bigfoot Ultimate Warrior shaking the ropes kind of thing. Um, and they're so we have those covers, and then we have limited edition versions of the metal covers of those covers that you can get. We have a super dope T-shirt, Bigfoot sort of walking, pulling a steel chair, and it says kayfabe on it. And then we have that design also made into a drink tumbler, and we have a couple of sticker packs. I would say we have tiers where you can get drawn into the crowd, but those are all sold out. We have Yeah, I think that's it, right? You can get all the covers. You can get all 8 covers in some tiers. You can get, the 4 regular covers. You get the 4 metal covers, and then there's add-ons to get your book signed by Gangrel. You can get the original Tales from the Road story. That's in volume one, and we actually have a variant cover that we're offering for that we did that's got Bigfoot on it. It's done in the style of the Cannonball Run movie poster, so it's all the characters that are in the first Tales from the Road, and there's Bigfoot and on the corner of one of them, and we made also in that collection is Nick Nemeth's sort of riff on the Toxic Avenger, so that guy is on the cover. There's a lot of cool stuff, um, but that's available as an add-on too. So we got a lot of cool stuff. Um, Definitely, you definitely more than enough to occupy your wallet.
that's very cool. And yeah, that T-shirt is is so rad. I'm so stoked for that shirt because I'm kind of a Bigfoot fan myself, and that shirt is kind of one of the coolest shirts I've seen from an indie comics Kickstarter in a while. So I'm very stoked for that. So people get on this Kickstarter. It ends December 19th, so we got a little ways to go. I'll make sure we put the link in the show notes. We'll get it shared out on social media, so you guys will have no excuse to go check this out. And if it's not your thing, but you've got people in your life who love Bigfoot, who love wrestling, or who just love great comics, make sure you share it with them just so we can help get the word out.
Sure. Yeah. It's
Definitely.
too good to miss.
Absolutely. So, we kind of mentioned a little bit before. After this Kickstarter is done, what do you have next that you can talk about that's coming up?
Um, Probably Volume 4, Tales from the Road. We've got new Danhausen in it. Working on stories with
Nice.
Jordan Grace, Joe Hendry, Shelton Benjamin. Brody King story is going to be in there. I think Jerry Lawler story is going in there. Um, the composition of Tales from the Road is always sort of up and down until the last minute because sometimes there might be somebody who, if I don't get a story from them now, they're going to be under contract later and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
it's always tricky.
sure.
So sometimes I think I know what it's going to be and then it changes. But there's a bunch of people whose contract status is probably going to change in 2025. So I'm trying to get a bunch of those guys locked in, but also, you know, the more original content I put in the volumes, then the more expensive it is
Yeah.
to make. So it's sort of finding a balance. And then it's not Kickstarter, but with Vampiro still running, issue 2 is coming out. It was supposed to be out last week, but Diamond had a shipping error, so shipping problem or something. So it'll be out this week, and then 3 should be out shortly thereafter. But yeah, we'll have 5 issues of that, and then take a couple months of break, and then do. I guess they want to do it in seasons. They consider it, but so it'll be 5 issues, and then a break, and then 5 more issues. So
Nice.
um, yeah, and then there's some other stuff that I'm working on that I can't talk about, but
That's
yeah,
fair.
there's lots of cool stuff coming down the pipe.
Very cool. And yeah, a couple of those wrestlers you mentioned, I have a feeling that 2025 is going to be big years for them. So yeah, hopefully you can get them locked down.
Oh, they're locked down. It's just got to get them done.
Yeah,
that's my
for sure.
that's my biggest problem is just
Yeah,
being one guy that I do everything but art and lettering. So I mean to do the show to carry the show schedule that I carry and to be around and do all the things that I do. It's tricky sometimes just to have time to sit and write. I
for
very
sure.
rarely have an uninterrupted hour, so you won't see it here, but in the middle of this podcast, I was interrupted. So, but it's tough. It's tough, and I'm on the end of a grueling week at the regular job, so I'm super exhausted. I don't think I've slept more than like 45 consecutive minutes in like the last 3 days. So
Oh my God.
it's like getting waterboarded, but these
Sure.
are uh, these are the conditions under which my productivity thrives, I guess.
Fair enough. All right, man, before I let you go, I want to see if you can give us some advice on running a Kickstarter. If someone was to start running their very first Kickstarter, what's some advice you would give?
Um, I would say the most important thing is to get your media set up beforehand. Don't launch it and then try to ask people for interviews. Um, I ignored that this time just because I was running out of time for the year, but and it's been tougher. But yeah, try to get your media set up ahead of time. Um, build it around if you do conventions, it's good to build it around the conventions because you're going to have that opportunity to talk to people. And I sold a lot of Kickstarter pledges off of people in person at shows, just having a chance to talk to them and get them to hear what it's about. They get a better version of your pitch. So I'll be in GalaxyCon in Columbus next weekend, you know, and I will be talking to anybody with 2 ears about Friday Night Bigfoot, and maybe we can get some stuff done. So, but yeah, it's those are the main things, and then I guess the other thing is you just got to be prepared. It's such an emotional roller coaster because you're going to look at that total at least at least 5 times an hour, probably more. and it's not going to move. You know, like it moves
Yeah.
at the beginning, it moves, and at the
Yeah.
end, it moves. But in the middle, right? Like in the middle of your campaign on a weekend, maybe you're going to get one or two pledges because people got shit to do, and
Yeah.
you're going to look at that thing probably 40 times, and it's maybe if you're lucky, it's going to move twice, and that is emotionally devastating. And that's why I gain 10 pounds every time I run a Kickstarter. I'm a stress eater.
Oh man.
So it's it's the best and the worst thing I've ever done. So
Yeah, I've never run one myself, but I could just imagine that I would be there just sitting clicking the refresh button over and over, hoping for something different. But
oh yeah, and I've gotten better at it than I used to be, but
yeah.
I'm doing it right now. And nope. So there you go. Um but yeah, it used to be different. Like you used to get email notifications every time somebody pledged, so I could just sort of refresh my inbox and be like, boom, you have a pledge, boom, you have a pledge. But now I just have to refresh the sort of Kickstarter app on my phone. But that used to have a lot more functionality than it does now.
Yeah.
But it's it's just a lot of that, and you got to be ready for it because no matter how hard you try, it always ends up being a fist fight.
Oh, for sure. All right, man. Well, before I let you go, let's give you a minute. You kind of already talked about GalaxyCon coming up. Let's give you a minute to plug whatever you want to plug. Let people know where to find you.
I mean, the main thing right now, obviously, is the Kickstarter. You can get a digital comic for $5, so you can get in as low as $5. It's been our lowest sort of price pointed Kickstarter. You can get some cool stuff that maybe turns out to be pretty valuable if we ever get it. If we get it taken somewhere. I mean, I know that
Sure.
there are some people I know that are Hollywood people that have expressed some interest in some stuff. So who
Nice.
knows? I mean,
That's
whatever.
awesome.
I've had a lot of smoke blown up my ass, so who knows?
Fair.
But
Fair.
there's something for everybody. Um, and then yeah, if you're in Columbus, Ohio next weekend, they're running AEW Collision out of GalaxyCon, and I will be there with Vampiro, talking about Bigfoot, selling tales from the road, art prints, whatever. Come say hey, high fives are welcome. Um, and that'll be my last show for the year, and then I'm just gonna try to steer this beast across the finish line.
Very cool. All right. So for me, I'd like to thank Polygon Horizon. Their song Pizza Force is the song we use for the show. Go check them out on Bandcamp. They're a great group of guys. Hit me up on Instagram and Facebook at Fueled by Weird, or check me out at fueledbyweird@gmail.com. Shoot me a message there. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And now you can find the Fueled by Weird show on the Spotlight Media GA app, along with the rest of the Stay Weird Network shows, the Nerdy Manroom show with Hassel and Monster, Hassel's Review, and Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food. Now, the Stay Weird Network, it's a brand new network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. Check us out on Instagram at Stay Weird Network and on YouTube and Instagram at Stay Weird Network. And I'd like to thank the sponsors, the Zone Collectibles in Tifton, Georgia, your one-stop shop for comics, collectibles, and so much more. Also, if you want to send an email to stayweirdnetwork at gmail.com, you can get hooked up there. We can chat with you about getting all sorts of stuff done. And if you like the show, please like, subscribe, and leave a review and tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, life's too short to be normal, so stay weird. Mike, thanks for hanging out with me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure.